the biggest fortunes usually begin long before the money appears. They begin with value, with a skill the world has not yet noticed, with a perspective nobody else is using, with a person becoming more useful, more resilient, more trusted, long before anyone calls them successful. John Paul spent years becoming more valuable before the market finally rewarded him. At the end of that road, he became a billionaire. At the start, he was sleeping in his car, not because he was travelling, because he had nowhere else to go. With a young son depending on him, each morning brought the same quiet question. How do you build a future when you're struggling to survive the present? Most people know how this story ends. The billionaire, the entrepreneur, the philanthropist. What they do not see are the invisible assets that made that ending possible. That is where the story really begins. DeJoria was born in Los Angeles in 1944 to immigrant parents trying to build a life in America. Money was always tight. After his parents divorced, the pressure got worse. By the age of 9, he was already selling newspapers and Christmas cards just to help keep the family moving. Then the ground shifted completely. His mother could no longer afford to care for him and his brother, so they entered foster care. A child does not think in financial terms. He thinks in moments. A suitcase packed in silence, a strange house, a new set of rules, the feeling that safety is temporary. For many people, that kind of childhood becomes a wound. For DeJoria, it became an education. He learned something early that would shape everything later. Security can disappear overnight. The only thing nobody can take away is the person you become. He did not know it yet, but that lesson would become the foundation of every business he would ever build. As a young man, John Paul took whatever work he could find: construction, janitorial jobs, door-to-door sales. On paper, they looked like ordinary jobs. In reality, they were training him for a very different life. Construction taught discipline. Janitorial work taught humility. Sales taught him something that would stay with him forever. People do not simply buy products. They buy confidence. They buy trust. Every closed door taught him something about rejection. Every conversation taught him something about people. Every refusal gave him another lesson in human psychology. Most people saw setbacks. DeJoria saw information. Without knowing it, he was becoming more valuable every single day. The world simply had not noticed yet. Eventually, he found his way into the professional hair care industry. He thought he was selling products. Looking back, he was collecting an education. Day after day, he listened to stylists complain about inconsistent quality, unreliable suppliers, and companies that treated professionals like an afterthought. He noticed that a stylist's recommendation often carried more weight than any advertisement. He began to understand that the real product wasn't shampoo, it was trust. If a stylist believed in a product, customers would usually believe in the stylist. That one insight quietly challenged the whole industry. He just did not know how to use it yet. Life was not finished testing him. Throughout the 1970s, DeJoria worked for several companies before being fired more than once. Each dismissal could have pushed him out of the industry entirely. Instead, it gave him another lesson in what not to do. Then the pressure became personal. His marriage ended. He was left raising his young son while trying to rebuild his career. Money disappeared faster than opportunities arrived. Eventually, he could no longer afford a home. For a period, father and son slept in his car. Picture that for a moment. Another day ends. The car stops in a quiet parking lot. The doors lock. The engine is off. There is nowhere to go except forward. No one is watching, but that does not make it easier. Many entrepreneurial stories end here, not with failure, with exhaustion. Because when survival consumes every hour, ambition has a hard time surviving with it. This could have been one of those stories. Instead, DeJoria asked himself a different question. If every company keeps making the same mistakes, what would the right company actually look like? The answer came in 1980. A respected hairstylist named Paul Mitchell believed in the same opportunity. The two men had almost nothing to start with, just $700. For most people, that number would have meant the dream was dead before it began. For DeJoria, it forced a better question. If he could not outspend the competition, what could he do that they could not? The answer was trust. Paul Mitchell was already one of America's most respected hairstylists. DeJoria understood the business behind the salon chair. Mitchell understood the craft performed in it. Together, they had something far more valuable than a large advertising budget: credibility. They launched John Paul Mitchell Systems with around $700. The biggest brands fought for supermarket shelves and expensive television campaigns. DeJoria refused to fight that battle. He knew customers trusted the person standing behind the salon chair far more than the person speaking through a television screen. So they sold exclusively through professional salons. What looked like a limitation became their advantage. Instead of convincing millions of strangers, they only had to earn the confidence of one stylist at a time. Every recommendation carried a personal reputation behind it, and every satisfied customer returned to the same salon for another bottle. Advertising rented attention, trust earned loyalty. The early years were brutally difficult. Cash flow was constantly under pressure, and a handful of unpaid invoices could threaten the company's future. John Paul personally drove from salon to salon, collecting overdue checks because every payment bought another few days to keep the dream alive. Those journeys did more than keep the lights on. Every conversation strengthened another relationship. Every relationship strengthened the network, and every new salon made the business more valuable than it had been the month before. That is how compounding really begins. Not with money, with trust repeated thousands of times. Over the years, one salon became 10, 10 became hundreds. Hundreds became thousands. Customers returned because the products delivered on the promise. For the first time, DeJoria was no longer selling his time. He was building a system, and owners of great systems don't just earn income. They own the value those systems continue creating. Then, just as the company had found its footing, tragedy struck. In 1989, Paul Mitchell died from pancreatic cancer. The man whose name appeared on every bottle was gone. Many young businesses would not have survived a loss like that. John Paul chose a different path. Rather than rebuilding the company around himself, he protected the values they had built together. Customers stayed because the trust they had earned was stronger than any single individual. The company had become bigger than either founder. That may have been its greatest achievement. As John Paul Mitchell Systems continued to grow, DeJoria began looking beyond hair care. In 1989, he co-founded Patrón Spirits Company with businessman Martin Crowley. Once again, he entered a crowded market. And once again, he refused to compete where everyone else was competing. At the time, tequila was rarely seen as a premium drink outside Mexico. Most producers focused on selling more bottles for lower prices. DeJoria asked a different question. What if people weren't buying tequila at all? What if they were buying craftsmanship, celebration and status? Patrón focused on exceptional quality, distinctive presentation, and premium positioning. It didn't ask customers to spend less. It gave them a reason to spend more. As demand for premium tequila grew around the world, Patrón became one of the brands leading that transformation. In 2018, its parent company was acquired by Bacardi in a deal worth about $5.1 billion. By then, John Paul DeJoria had become a billionaire. But money was never the real story. The real story was how he earned it. First came resilience, then discipline, then communication, then rare industry knowledge, then trust, then ownership. Every step made him more valuable than the one before. Eventually, the market rewarded that value with extraordinary wealth. Success transformed his circumstances, but it never erased his past. Remembering foster care, poverty, and the nights spent sleeping in his car, DeJoria devoted much of his fortune to supporting education, homelessness initiatives, environmental conservation, and disaster relief. Because he understood something that wealth alone can never provide. Security is temporary. Character is not. Years earlier, the only thing John Paul DeJoria owned was a car to sleep in. Decades later, he owned companies worth billions. The difference wasn't luck. It wasn't timing. It was the value he built between those two moments. Because the greatest fortunes are rarely created by people who have more. They are created by people who become more.